What up? Welcome back to another episode of Unfinished, the podcast, the yap sesh, the brain dump, the growth, exploration, journey, self-discovery, really just everything, whatever my brain has to offer. I have been enjoying life as of late, if I'm being so for real. I have. And I know last episode I was talking about work and life maxing as well, new opportunities. And if you haven't watched it, you should go watch the previous episode prior to this one. If you haven't watched any of the previous ones, go binge Unfinished, the podcast. I really don't be making super long episodes, like 20 minutes on average. So go catch yourself up to speed with my self-discovery, But yeah, life has been good nonetheless. Finally getting in the routine of learning how to balance, because I always strive to find balance and have balance in my life in all aspects. And as of recently, it has been figuring out how to balance work and life outside of work. Work-life balance is truly no joke. I actually understand a lot more now that I have a full-time equivalent hours. I work 2 part-time jobs, and one of them be basically full-time. I'm like, can I get some days off, please? Thankfully, I typically do, but it's just like figuring out the routine of it all now that your boy no longer has a part-time. And I took way too much advantage of my free time when I was working part-time, and I'm realizing that a lot now as I am figuring out how to continue my creative endeavors, how to stay passionate, for my art. And I will always be passionate about my creative self-expression. That is how I've always been. That is how I will always be. Because ultimately, I, as all of us are, creations and products of art, and the camera is going down. Shout out the wind. Currently on a trampoline, if you couldn't tell already, in the backyard once again. Shout out the younger cousins for this one, because they wanted a trampoline and they got a trampoline, best believe. And this is the perfect setup, I'm not gonna lie. Like, recording here right now, I don't have to sit on the ground, and I get to enjoy the greenery, what's left of it still, because even though it's fall, the leaves have not all fallen, thankfully, because once they do, it's just going to be how it is, the transition to winter. Talked a little bit about the seasonal transitions and what it means to me in the last episode as well, so go peep. I really enjoy this season of life that I'm in right now and everything it has to offer and bring. And just got my passport renewed yesterday. Thankfully, I have a big trip coming up next month, and I'm really excited for it. I'm gonna share some more details as it gets closer in some following episodes, but life has been pretty good. I will say I've still been life maxing. Low-key might just get comfortable, because this episode, 444, just look down at the recording. All is well indeed. I've been realizing a lot lately with figuring out a balance between life and work, and it's more so I have no other option but to do things tired. I'm like, this is really adulthood now. This is really what being a productive member of society is like in America. I have to show up. I have to get my dues. I have to pay my bills, which I'll be so honest, like, I'm 21. It could be a lot worse than it is right now. Just stating the facts. However, that doesn't discount the experience and the life that I am living now, I do understand that it is a privilege to be just simply in a position where you are able to show up, you are able to go to work every day, you are able to drive and get yourself around, you are able to have a phone, you are able to connect with your friends via the internet, you are able to have a platform to connect with random people on the internet. You are able to express your thoughts freely. You are able to move freely. And we all have privilege in some way, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Let's be real. It is a privilege to simply exist. It's a beautiful privilege. It is one that is innate inside of all of us, regardless of your position. And I just think of that, and it makes me positive. It makes me optimistic. It brings me joy in my life, in my day-to-day routine, and it keeps me going, because there could be a point where I no longer have the privilege to simply be, We have a very limited time here, and I do think with time comes privilege, however long or short that time may be. That's just been something that has been on my mind. I've been trying to call myself out more with it, because I've always been a procrastinator growing up, like K through 12 through now even. I'm gonna do it later. Productive procrastination, Not, because procrastination is actually a form of laziness. And I'm going to justify for procrastination in a sense, because I see both sides in a lot of arguments, and I feel like that is beneficial at times, but then it's like, pick a side. Ultimately, not everything is black and white. Like procrastination can get you some places. Procrastination can be for the better, but we're just going to stick with the context of procrastinating life, procrastinating your destiny, procrastinating who you strive to be. I have been calling myself out with this because we are the only ones in our way of achieving success, whatever we deem that to be, And yes, you can argue that there are a lot of limiting factors, external circumstances at hand that are limiting you. However, I feel as though you can still meet your journey halfway, regardless of the circumstance at hand. And don't get me wrong, it can be really hard to at times, because we as humans are constantly ever evolving, constantly in a state of flow, change, transformation. In low lows, it can be hard to just tell yourself to pick yourself up and go do the thing you need to do. It's about more so phases, and I think recognizing what phase you are in your life in the moment and adjusting accordingly, and even just having the awareness of, hey, I might be in a low position right now. However, that doesn't mean that I can't pick myself up. And even if it's just simply showing up, doing your basic tasks, simply just getting out of bed, eating, showering, telling yourself, I'm going to get up tomorrow and it's going to be a better day than today. Nothing is forever, and life is really beautiful for that reason. And I'm just sitting here, we got the leaves, we got the trees, and they have been here long before me. I'm like, this one, over 100 years for sure. You see how big it is? You can't see up there, but you can only imagine. And with that, I love nature because it is truly the most timeless offering we have here, I think, because it just ages and evolves over time as humans do. But we were put on Earth, and Earth has been here longer than us. So with that being said, that's why I think I have such a astounding appreciation for nature, and why it brings me a sense of peace overall. I'm like, peace, yes, because you just get around, and it's so grounding just to simply be outside, to simply observe, to simply feel the breeze, and to simply speak to the trees. I love fucking rhyming. Somebody stop me. Nobody stopped me, actually. And on that note, I want to talk about this month, October. I set some goals for myself because trying to hold myself accountable more so, because that is the only way we can grow, is to acknowledge what is and isn't working in our lives in the active present moment, or continue to ignore it and to live life, to continue going with the flow, even if it isn't the best for you, if it isn't the path, the direction that's working. However, you may just be telling yourself that it's working and convincing yourself of a false narrative, when in reality, we know what we need. We know what we need internally, externally, and I fear that there's a lot of blockages nowadays. I mean, shit, it's always been a thing, for real, if I'm being honest. And like, whether that be the call from within or hobbies, people, circumstances, whatever it is, we're blocking ourselves in some capacity. And with some of those goals, with all the calling out of myself I have been doing, I want to take some time and speak on some October goals I have for myself this month, as I feel like creating monthly goals helps to hold oneself accountable. The first goal is treating myself like a best friend. I feel as though there are a lot of times in my life where I have done something for the betterment of others rather than for myself. And I think that is a part of people pleasing. And I have been working on that and just getting out of that sense, because to be one's own best friend, and I don't mean this in the sense of isolation and not being friends with anyone, more so in the sense of continuing to give the love to all those who you love around you, whilst showing up just as much with that love for yourself. Because if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love others? Consistency, full effort, consideration, compassion. You need to give all those things to yourself. Trust, loyalty, dedication to yourself, to your goals, to your passions, to everything. You have to put that effort and energy into yourself just as much as you do to others. I'm trying to show up every day, reminding myself of that, because I think by doing so, this is just a suggestion. I have a leaf in my hand. I'm like, it's fall, y'all. That is kind of like the key to getting to success in whatever that sense means to you in your own personal life. Another goal I have, I spoke on it earlier, but finding that work-life balance, coming to appreciation and gratitude even with the fact that right now I am just simply in a season of work. I am in a season of discipline in that sense, in a season of reaching more stability. And I have come to realize as well, once again, everything is on divine timing. Everything is on a path, regardless of if you know what that path is in the moment, or if you think you know. Shit, you can get thrown completely different cards, a whole new circumstance, challenge, and it's up to you. It's up to how you react more so to that event, to anything it may be. And in this case, you got to show up for yourself, however that may be, without sacrificing your self-worth, your self-love, your self-compassion, all of the above, which is why, going back to the first goal, treating yourself like your own best friend is key to loving yourself and to loving everyone around you. Because ultimately, we are here to learn, live, and love. In doing so, all three, we're living, we're learning, we're loving. With all that being said in life, I have also been enjoying my recent endeavors. I got into modeling at the start of this year. I've been behind the camera forever, but it's been a switch up, and I'm still behind the camera, but it's a nice new outlook and a nice new perspective on subjects, aka the people, the models behind the lens when I'm shooting personally. And I get to experience that new aspect, that new perspective of being in front of the lens. And I recently walked my first fashion shows this past weekend. I had one on Friday, got to walk that with some of my friends. Shout out y'all for real. Oh, and shout out the designer. Shout out Damn That Diva, because Damn That Diva will be premiering on here one day when I start doing more guest episodes. I need to get back into that, just as I need to get back into being consistent, which we've talked about it already, showing up actively, getting better at that. But expect a cameo from Damn That Diva, aka Stefan. We'll have good talks. So got to do that. Really grateful for that opportunity. And then on Sunday, I got to walk my first runway fashion show. That was a really fun experience overall. It was something that I view now as so much growth and so much learning and so much expansion. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would have not really thought I would be doing something like that. And I think it really helped with my exposure and perception, more so exposure therapy, because I really have identified and suffered with anxiety a lot of my life. And I think a lot of that has been due to perception, and it hasn't been the same in all parts of my life. There's been moments where I feel very comfortable with the overall concept of being perceived. On the contrast, there's been moments where I haven't wanted to be perceived. And long story short, this has been very helpful in just getting comfortable in front of that environment. And I'm realizing it's a performance, it's an art, and art is ultimately the act of self-expression. So you have to be able to show up for yourself, however that may be, however that may come to you. And both of these opportunities just so happen to present themselves. And in convincing myself that I was worthy, that I was on the right path of alignment with it, these opportunities would not have found themselves into my life if they were not meant for me. Just as any other circumstance in all of our lives would not have showed up if we truly weren't destined to go through it and learn from it and grow from it. Because lifelong learners, am I right? We're just here to grow, live, learn, love, laugh. It's not that serious at the end of the day. Life is not that serious. It's serious, but it's unserious. Optimistic nihilism, I wouldn't say I think like that fully, but it's true though. It's not that serious. Get a laugh out of it every once in a while, shit, all the time, because that's just going with the flow. Kind of loving that right now. Kind of in that season where I'm like, it's good to laugh. It's good to get all these thoughts out and just show up, because that's what I'm here for. That's what my journey is here for. That's what we're here for. You're here. I'm here. We're just two beings, being here together. So with all that being said, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode and catch up. And, I hope you continue to figure out your path, however that may look for you. And I hope you're on alignment with yourself. And if not, that's okay, because we are constantly rediscovering ourselves. Life is like a spiral, I really love the symbol of the spiral, because you're going within as you're looping in, and then you're going outward as you learn more, as you embrace your authenticity, as you live the life that you were destined for. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. My name is AJ. Instagram, AJ Willan, link in bio. I will see you next week. Peace.